Forgiving oneself is crucial for spiritual and mental health. It means letting go of past mistakes and accepting that we are human. When we forgive ourselves, we align with God's love and grace. Self-forgiveness is not about ignoring our faults. It is about understanding that God has the power to forgive us completely. Holding on to guilt can create a barrier between us and God. When we forgive ourselves, we experience true freedom. This trust can lead to spiritual growth and inner peace. 1 John 1:9 says, "If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness." This verse shows that God's forgiveness is certain. When we confess, he forgives us completely. God's forgiveness is not partial. He does not hold our past against us. Instead, he cleanses us from all unrighteousness. Understanding God's faithful forgiveness helps us forgive ourselves. Self-forgiveness is a step towards healing. Psalm 103 verse 12 states, "As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us." This verse illustrates the limitless nature of God's forgiveness. It is a powerful reminder of how completely he removes our sins. This imagery of distance shows that God does not remember our sins. Once forgiven, our past mistakes are gone forever. This understanding should be liberating. Embracing and accepting God's forgiveness allows us to move forward. By doing so, we align ourselves with his will and experience true joy. They feel unworthy of God's grace. This feeling stems from past mistakes and regrets. Self-forgiveness requires us to change our mindset. We need to believe that we are worthy of God's love. Another struggle is the fear of repeating past mistakes, which sometimes happens. But God's grace teaches us to trust in his will and guidance. Forgiving ourselves does not mean we forget our lessons. It is about accepting God's forgiveness and allowing it to transform and renew our lives. Holding on to guilt is counterproductive. It prevents us from experiencing God's grace fully. Guilt can create a cycle of negative thinking. This cycle can lead to feelings of unworthiness and despair. God does not want us to live in guilt and shame. He sent Jesus to free us from sin and guilt. By holding on to guilt, we reject this gift of freedom. Living in guilt can affect our relationship with God. Forgiving ourselves is an act of accepting God's plan for us. Accepting God's grace is the key to moving forward. It means believing that his forgiveness is real. This acceptance can transform our lives. It can bring us peace and joy. After all, God's grace is a free gift. It is not something we earn. By accepting this gift, we acknowledge his love for us. Self-forgiveness is a part of accepting God's grace. Moving forward means letting go of the past. Forgiving ourselves has many benefits. Emotionally, it frees us from guilt and shame. It allows us to live with a clear conscience. Spiritually, self-forgiveness brings us closer to God. It shows that we trust in his forgiveness, his finished work. This trust can deepen our relationship with him. Self-forgiveness also helps us forgive others. When we understand God's forgiveness for us, we can extend that forgiveness to others. Overall, self-forgiveness leads to a healthier life. Forgiving yourself is a journey. It requires faith and trust in God's grace. But remember, God's forgiveness is complete. He removes our sins as far as the east is from the west. Holding on to guilt is like rejecting his grace. Instead, embrace his forgiveness. Take time to reflect, spending time with God in his word and in prayer. Trust in his love, mercy, and timing. Experience the true healing and freedom that comes from his grace.